The will to love is the law to live. Most of the poems that I've written in my life, the relatively few poems that I've written in my life, have been contrived. And by that I mean I'd write a poem slowly with lots of crossing out and replacing words and looking in rhyming dictionaries and all this kind of thing. Contrived poetry, which doesn't necessarily mean bad poetry, but it's not inspired. Inspired poetry kind of comes out of nowhere. It hits you like a lightning bolt. Um, Crowley's Class A texts, specifically Liber 7 and Liber 65, he considered to be inspired poetry, although a lot of his earlier and subsequent poetry was contrived. Now, I did write one inspired poem that came out of nowhere, and it's a short 16-line piece with 4 quatrains and rhyming couplets. And I wrote it after I was released from, for want of a better term, solitary confinement in an NHS psychiatric hospital. But basically, I got quite unwell and I threw my weight around a bit and got a little bit violent, which they don't tolerate in hospital. So even though it was only minor violence, I ended up in what they call the safe room for 12 days altogether. And when I got out of the safe room, I did write this little poem, which came out of nowhere. So here it is. There are doors between us. The fiery furnace of guilt has expired, no longer in muck or mire. Release would be the normal word, yet my term is quite unheard. I have been released, unfurled, all my problems have uncurled. A taste of peace, a gentle hug, forgiveness itself the only drug. To mend my now distant woes, and hell has left its afterglow. Serenity supreme, tranquillity's dream, and I dive long into the cool lake of karma dashed to the winds, and for hell and heaven's sakes, I've lost a million things. So there's a little poem. The footnote says that it was written in February 2021, so quite a while now. But the lead up to that poem was basically me stuck in solitary. I don't really call it solitary because there was always a nurse outside the room who I could talk to. And they would even let me surf the internet through a tablet on the other side of the door. There was only one member of staff that ignored me, and that was only for a few hours. So it wasn't really solitary confinement, but it was confinement for 12 days. But it resulted in this rather charming little poem, which I think is probably one of the few inspired poems that I ever wrote. Um, yeah, it's called There Are Doors Between Us because, as most people might suspect, psychiatric hospitals are filled with doors. Yeah, okay. Thelema all.